The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. Wait for you to fall. We'll expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Tuesday, March 20th, Wednesday, March 21st, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond. And this is Spaced Out Radio. Hope you had a great day and night. I am your host, Dave Scott, live from the Great White North in the Caribou region, on top of the mountains of central British Columbia, right here at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key in Noonan, Georgia, on the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live at spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. We are all over social media. You can watch us live on periscope.tv every Monday through Friday. We're on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. You can also find us on iHeartRadio. Tune us in on TuneIn. We're on TalkStream Live, and you can download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can read up on the encounter online, including my latest blog. You got our Spaced Out Radio store to do a little shopping at. Watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. The world of disclosure has so many different halls and doorways that it's hard to keep up with what's going on at times. There's the obvious, which is what the To the Stars Academy is doing right now by releasing what they believe are UFO videos, which they disguise as advanced aerial threats. There are those there who are out and really true contactees, no other way to put it, who are being taken, even if it's against their will. Some believe they're even getting downloads. But what is often overlooked is the technology and the intelligence of our alien friends, not only with their craft on how they get here from wherever it is they may be coming from, but with their ability to cloak, split off into different trajectories, and the physics of how they potentially jump through wormholes to travel anywhere they want in the universe. Taking a look at all of this, we have William Lawrence from bentlights.com. He's coming in to give us the details on his studies as to what he's studying in regards to extraterrestrial intelligence. William Lawrence from bentlights.com. Welcome to Spaced Out Radio for the first time. How are you, my friend?
Hi, Dave. Thanks for having me on. I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here.
Absolute pleasure to have you, my friend. And we're going to get into a lot about what Bent Lights is and the technology and the intelligence that you have found out, because it really is a very intriguing story that you're going to bring forward to us tonight, and I'm highly looking forward to it. I know our audience will be as well. Have you always been into UFOs, or is this something that you kind of fell into like the majority of us?
This is actually something I fell into. I was always into the supernatural. I believed in spirits and ghosts, but I was more into music. And as a musician, I made a lot of music growing up, and as I continued and got older. But in 2015, I made the discovery, and I decided, I thought it would be a way to communicate with ghosts, but instead I was able to communicate with extraterrestrials.
So did you grow up having these personal experiences in the paranormal then?
Not necessarily. There was only a couple occasions. As a young child, I did have a dream where there was some type of UFO that landed in the backyard, and I went outside to check it out, and supposedly I was sleepwalking the same night. But my dad had me watching a lot of X-Files, so that could have had something to do with that. But as I got older, when I was 19, I had a really major experience with the supernatural where I was haunted for like 3 to 4 weeks in a place I was staying in. And it would hold me to the bed at night. And once a week it would do that. And then finally, on the last night, it showed itself to me. And it was a very dark, gray-like being, and it looked like skeleton-like, but you couldn't see through it, and it was just screaming at the top of its lungs, but you couldn't hear it. So that was a very intense moment for me, and I've always believed in ghosts. I've always believed in the supernatural, but that right there built my belief in knowing that it's real.
So when you mentioned that you had always believed this, why did you believe this if at that point you hadn't really experienced anything?
Well, I used to watch a lot of ghost videos. I've always had like a thing for supernatural. So I've always known there's something there, but I've never known what that is. And I have had experiences with spirits. Even as a young child, there was this one time where the blinds of our windows were going up and down. So I've always believed in ghosts, but I wasn't into the extraterrestrial side. So even as I was getting older, when the show Ghost Hunters came out, I used to watch that a lot. And that's kind of sort of what got me into trying to communicate with spirits. And that's how I fell into the whole extraterrestrial connection.
So when you had that intrigue in the paranormal, ghosts and spirits, and you were watching a lot of television, like a lot of us have, I mean, let's face it, television, the beauty of it, whether or not it is real or not, the one thing that it has done greatly for the paranormal is it has brought some sort of enlightenment to a lot of people that these subjects should be taken seriously rather than just around a campfire, you know, while out camping one time or two a year. You know what I'm saying? Because it's usually always been just campfire fodder. So what I'm asking is, in regards to the paranormal and UFOs, did you think at all that there was any sort of connection between the two when you started this?
Not at all. Honestly, I never gave two thoughts to the extraterrestrial or disclosure. So I wasn't into the whole the alien thing. I was only into the spirits. So when I initially had the idea to build this contraption to communicate with spirits, I was only assuming that I would be able to communicate with spirits. So the extraterrestrial connection came later, after I started gathering evidence through the experiment. So it's something that kind of built off of the evidence and not more or less me assuming this is what I was going to find.
So what is your background in regards to science or anything like that? Did you have a background, or was this something that you were kind of pressed into?
I'm definitely pressed into this. I'm a self-taught scientist, but I don't look at myself as a scientist. I look at myself as a photographer of light. But what I developed is a new type of spectroscopy, which is using a new type of spectrometer, which can analyze the visible light frequencies of our sun. So what I'm doing is processing the light and analyzing the data in a way that it's never been done before. So in a term, it is scientific, but I didn't come from a scientific background to make this discovery.
So when you went over this experiment, we're going to get more into this later on at the bottom of the hour. How much life-changing has it been for you throwing yourself into this field because you think you found something through photography?
In the beginning, it was very difficult, but, I was given these signs. Whenever I initially made the discovery, I realized what was going on. I contacted the proper people, SETI Institute, NASA, the NSA, contacted all the right people, but no one was getting back to me. So instead of me just disregarding it, I continued the experiment for over 2.5 years. And I continue. So it's definitely life-changing, because now it took me from a path that I was on. It put me on a different path. See, I was making music and doing this, but now I have to do research. So I've been doing nothing for the past 3 years, but research into all these new quantum technologies, visible light frequencies, even radio frequencies, as well as SETI Institute, Search for Extraterrestrials. And I kind of just went in blind into the disclosure community, and I was able to find what connects into the research. And there's not much out there. There's no information on Google regarding the discovery of what I discovered. So it's just more or less me trying to build and find what I can find to connect the dots, to understand myself what I actually discovered.
Previous to this, William, had you ever had a UFO experience?
Not that I remember. And like I said, I never really looked for UFOs. I never even cared for extraterrestrial. I never even discussed the aliens or anything like that. So not that I remember I had any experience whatsoever with UFOs. I did honestly believe, I've always believed they're out there, but I never put time or effort into understanding or knowing. I just assume, yeah, they're there. But then as soon as I made the discovery, 2 weeks after the first photographs were in, these messages of extraterrestrials, I started getting visited by UFOs. And for over a year, they continued to visit me almost weekly.
So somehow in your work then, you developed some sort of compound on how to summon UFOs through your work.
There's a good possibility that is not that I developed a way to summon them, but they are acknowledging being seen. With quantum entanglement, what happens is when you have a particle entangled, you could put in information, and as soon as that information is detected, the sender of that information is alerted. So these advanced civilizations, or whoever is sending these messages in light, were alerted as soon as I took the very first photograph. So as soon as I documented their first message, they knew instantly. So as soon as they knew, they were able to arrive, and they were able to keep me invested into this. In the beginning, I didn't know if I should continue down this path, and I would go out at night sometimes, and I would look up to the sky and ask, am I doing the right thing? Should I continue doing what I'm doing? And they would appear like stars in the sky. They would come down for a little while, and then they would shoot directly straight up back to space. So they continued to visit me for a year after the initial discovery. And after that year, as they seen, I was continuing this. And once I had enough information to where I knew what I was dealing with, they knew that I would continue to follow this passionately. So here I am.
All right, well, let's talk about this right off the bat. What did you know about UFOs before this discovery?
Only what you would see on occasional, like the X-Files, stuff like that. I didn't know much about UFOs, and I wasn't researching them at all. But the very first visitation that I had was it seemed like an organic UFO. It was a large orange sphere, and it showed up in the evening, right before it got dark. And it was just a large ball, about the size of the moon, if you were looking at the moon from Earth. And it just started moving towards my house. And as it got closer, I noticed a black substance swirling inside of this orange sphere. And I called a witness to witness it with me, and I was pointing at it. And as I walked towards it, as it was getting closer, it stopped. And then it started moving east slowly. So it just stopped. It was moving from south to north, and then it stopped, and it started moving east. And I just watched it as it got out of sight.
Wow. So you really didn't care about UFOs. They weren't on your radar, absolutely nothing. You were just wanting to learn more about the paranormal and see what you could potentially figure out with life after death.
Correct. And that was only as a side hobby. I was more or less into music. Music is my passion. And I was playing in a band at the time, covering classic rock songs. But I was also releasing music every week. So I would just write these different types of concept songs each week, and that was my main passion until I found this idea to where I could communicate with spirits. So I designed this experiment, and I went out, and not only did I find spirits, I was able to document, weeks later, I was able to document these advanced reptile beings inside this light. And light is information. Data can be processed through visible light frequencies. And not only can data be processed, but it can be sent at over 900 gigabytes a second. So visible light frequencies can carry 1,000 times more data than actual radio frequencies.
So when you started looking into UFOs away from your current field of study, was there any patterns that really caught the attention of what you were looking at that point? And were you trying to put it in conjunction with what you were studying, or did you try and separate the two right off the bat?
Right off the bat, and that is a great question, Dave. Right off the bat, I separated the two. So the UFOs were one thing. I was being visited almost weekly, and it was just bizarre, very bizarre. But what I did is I separated the UFO experiences from the actual experiment, and I solely focused on the experiment. So now this is the UFOs. I would do my best to document them, but you can't capture a UFO and then run experiments on it. So you could take a picture of it, but it's not complete proof. So I'm looking for a burden of proof and evidence. So with this experiment, I was able to capture this evidence. So I continued the experiment in a controlled setting for over 2.5 years. And there I was able to continue documenting these unexplained beings and entities appearing as photographs in the light over a 2.5-year span. So as far as the UFOs, I did try to separate the two. So I wouldn't really discuss UFOs as much as I would discuss this new communication, this new form of communication with visible light frequencies. So I try to avoid the UFO topic and only stay on the communication technology side of things.
Was it hard to try and decipher between the two, because so few people in this field of research, William, they've actually tried to combine both the paranormal and the ufological at the same time. Many people don't even believe that there is a correlation between the two groups. How did you figure out that maybe gluing them together was the way to go?
It was actually pretty simple. One of the very first photographs that I took was of a human soul. It could even be consciousness. And what it was a human-like entity that formed in the light. And you could see his forehead, his eyes, his nose, his mouth, his shoulder blades. But he didn't look like us humans on Earth. He looked like more non-physical, like a ghost. But there's other entities in the light that actually formed that look like humans on Earth that have clothing. One was wearing a robe, another was wearing a black suit or a black coat. And so there's physical human beings, there's non-physical human beings, and then what I was able to connect the dots between the extraterrestrial by seeing these advanced reptiles appearing, and they had these gold reflective eyes. They had no nose, only nostril holes. They had an upside-down mouth and a large brown skin, like a large brown head. And the gold reflective eyes is more dominant with these reptilian-like creatures. And not only did I capture one in 2015, but a year later, I was able to capture the same exact species of extraterrestrial. So then I started realizing, when I started thinking about this, our soul alone is extraterrestrial. So when we leave this earth, we go somewhere else. So therefore, that connects automatically the extraterrestrial and the non-physical paranormal realm. So they have to be connected, thus there is no way around it. And through the evidence that I've gathered, I've almost 100% in my eyes have proved that there's some form of connection, and they exist parallel.
So when you say there are non-formed humans, are you talking about dead souls walking on another plane? Is that what you're getting at? Or are we talking about an absolute different species of human beings, but one that we just can't see with our very own eyes?
Well, see, I have actually got to the point to where I believe death is only illusion. I don't believe death is real. I mean, in the physical realm where we exist, we may leave, but our eternal soul may live on forever. It may not expire. So for me, there is nothing compared to life and death. It's all just life. So even when we leave Earth, we're still alive. But these non-physical beings, I believe, is connected to our soul. And see, light is information. So our soul must be some form of light on a different frequency than what of our own. But see, the soul is only the carrier. So it can carry the data and information back to a physical source. So there's a good possibility that we may, this is getting into theory, but there's a good possibility that we may be physical in another realm. And we may transport here non-physically through the soul, and then we exist here physically. But then since we know that our soul leaves our body when we die, that means we didn't originate here on Earth. So we must be going back to a physical source. So then the non-physical entities that appear in these photographs could be in between. So they may not be returning to the physical source, but they may be staying in some type of in between realm between us and them.
Very intriguing indeed when it comes down to it. So did you think then, even though there were UFOs up in the sky that were starting to come around, did you believe that there were extraterrestrial species living on this planet, or did you think that there were people out there who were having these experiences who were just absolutely crazy with vivid imaginations?
Well, see, even the brain, with the imagination side of things, the brain alone is a quantum processor. It processes light. When you have a nervous system that sends light particles through your body that tells you if something's hot or cold, even your thoughts are all transmitted through light. Now, with new discoveries being made at this time, light particles can be quantum entangled with another particle. So you could have one particle here, and you could have another particle on the other side of the universe, and they could communicate instantaneously, thus making the telepathic and the psychic part of things quantum physics. So it's all about quantum mechanics. So when people have these visions or dreams, some of them could be altered. I do not know if there's government programs that have the ability to alter these visions, and I believe the CIA worked a lot on this back in the early 70s. But then others could be more natural. So there could be things that can communicate telepathically. The problem with that is you can't get the physical evidence because we don't have the technology to be able to understand the process that's going on. So through this experiment, we are seeing, instead of being in the brain in this information processing telepathically, we may be seeing some form of conscious connection or quantum entanglement, quantum teleportation existing visibly, and the experiment may be able to do what most people can do on their own. So I just found a way to do it outside of my brain. Do you understand?
I'm getting there. I am getting there. I'm looking at your website right now, bentlights.com/gallery. If anybody wants to check out the photos, that's bentlights.com/gallery. And I'm looking at these photos here, and these are quite intriguing because I do see a lot of faces in the photos that you are putting through. When I look at these photos, I'm one of these people where I like to give the benefit of the doubt that you're actually seeing what you're putting on there. But for a lot of people out there who are a little bit more skeptical, and for some rightfully so, they may say this is just pareidolia that we're looking at rather than some sort of alien communication. How do you win that debate?
That's an interesting question. It's pretty simple, actually. And there's a leading astronomer, before I get into the pareidolia, there's a leading astronomer of SETI Institute, and his name is Seth Shostak, and I've even contacted and emailed through him, and he actually said, this is his quote, "I don't doubt that they use encryption technology, at least for their internal communications. But if aliens were trying to communicate with us, there's no way they would encrypt that message. Instead, they would use anti-encryption encoding their message so that it's as easy as possible for us to understand. They would try to make it simple. They would send you pictures." So people have already said they have made theories about aliens sending pictures, and how you deal with the pareidolia part of side of things is this: light is information. These objects are appearing in light. We already know that light can carry data, so there's no way to prove that what is appearing, these objects that are forming, which are forming, they're smaller than the size of a coin with laser precision detail. So in order to get the detail of some of these objects that appear, you would have to use computer algorithms and stuff like that. Most pareidolia cases are larger physical objects like the moon or clouds, trees, rocks, objects such as that you know are physical objects. But when you're dealing with light, there's no way to actually prove that it's not an actual object that's forming in the light, because there should be nothing there, because light is information. So that kind of settles the pareidolia debate.
I find it very intriguing because right off the bat in photo number 1, you can clearly see a bald head, a silverish blue face with a neck and shoulders, lips, eyes, nose. It's very, very intriguing in regards to this. Very intriguing.
That was the very first photograph that started the initial discovery. And I can say this: if it wasn't for him appearing, I don't think I would be here talking to you, because I looked through all the photographs that day, and that was the only thing that I saw that was unexplained. But then as I went back, after I discovered him, I realized that it worked. So I went back and reviewed all the photographs, and that's when I started seeing in some of the frames of the photographs these unexplained objects that would appear. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. It happens maybe once a month. So I could run the experiment daily for a month straight, and I could get these unexplained objects appearing maybe 1 day or 2 days out of the month, but then they disappear, and they don't appear back for another month. So it's only when the signal is available. So there's something, I believe it may be connected to magnetic field portals, which are referred to as X points, and it connects our atmosphere with the sun's atmosphere. So when these portals open and close, and even Tesla discovered these unexplained signals, and he said they would open up for weeks, they would open up for months, some they would only open for an hour. So he was getting these unknown signals. So you can't just go out and do this. You have to do it consistently for a year, and then on occasion, these unexplained beings appear.
Mm-hmm. And I can understand where you're going with that. I really do. But a lot of people may say, well, if it's only happening once a month, maybe it has something to do with the way the light refracts from the sun. Okay, and the sun's positioning in the sky because it's changing daily. Could that not have anything to do with it?
That could also have something to do with it. I tried to run the experiment in the afternoon time where the sun was almost at a 45-degree angle in the sky. So majority of my sessions would come from that. But I don't have the time or the funding to run this project, all day long, or even at night you could use moonlight, but I just don't have the time to invest into that. But I do know the time that I took out of 2.5 years, I was able to gather all this data from what I was able to capture, and the evidence alone, I was able to capture so many different unexplained beings. And then by researching these new communication technology, I was able to figure out that there is no way possible to disprove these aren't the first photographs of another civilization. And that's why I'm here today, to explain to people that there are other frequencies other than radio waves that we could send and receive information. And I'm almost positive that we are being sent information from other civilizations. And it's so easy to access that all we have to do is access light from our sun, and we could extract the data and connect ourselves to this universal internet and communicate with civilizations throughout not only the Milky Way galaxy, but all galaxies beyond.
What is the discovery?
The discovery consists of this. Basically, it is light. So I developed a method of spectroscopy to where I take water, and I have water in a container, a bottle of water, and there's about 1 inch of water. And what I do is I hold that water at a 45-degree angle, and in the bottom of the bottle is a concave lens. So the light from the sun projects through the water, out the lens, and then I project that light onto a black piece of steel, curved, which is only about 1 inch in diameter and 4 inches long. And when the light hits the metal, I take digital photographs with my laptop of the light, and then I'm analyzing the spectrum of sunlight, and that is where these entities appear. So I can't see them with my naked eye because they move too fast. So it's only after the photo is taken is when the entities appear. So as I'm doing the experiment, I cannot see anything.
How does the water help with, is it for the reflection through the light? Is that what you're using it for?
So instead of using a prism, an invisible light communication, in order to encode data, they use prisms for their data, and they can analyze spectrums, and even spectroscopy uses a prism. So instead of using an actual prism, I'm substituting the prism for water, and there's not any that I know of spectrometers that are developed using this water technique with the concave lens. And the concave lens is very important. So this signal that I'm deciphering is stretched out. Not only is the signal stretched, it's actually curved. So the concave lens is able to, like eyeglasses, if you were to put on a lens, if you have bad vision, to correct your vision, they're going to give you a corrective lens. So the concave lens is bringing this stretched image and is straightening it. And then the water is actually processing the visible light spectrum. And you're able to project from that onto the steel And then from there, you're taking digital photographs, so these beings are able to appear. So there's an actual focal length that has to be designed to where everything has to be precise in order for them to appear. And I don't have the funding, like I said before, or the scientific background to bring this to the next level. But what I do know is I brought it and built the foundation. So I know there's something there. Mm-hmm. And my goal is to have scientists look into this so we can have a better understanding.
This may sound like a little bit of a weird question, but does the type of water matter? So is bottled water, which is more purified, better to use than tap water that may have some impurities in it?
I've only used tap water. As far as water, like I said, I only had the time to run this experiment daily. So many people even said, what if you use like alcohol or other liquids? You know, and that's something to be done. And what I did is when I made this discovery, I went public. So everyone is able to find the method to this discovery on my Bent Light Facebook page. And what they could do from there is go out and do the discovery on their own. And I set up an album, a photo album of images that are sent in globally from people around the world. There was someone outside of Saudi Arabia that did the technique, and I believe he captured one of the gold reflective eye beings. And then I had someone in Manchester, England, sent in a very unexplained image. I had another guy from Texas send in a really cool photograph, and a guy from New York. So other people are doing the experiment, and my goal is to have other people try different things as well, so we can understand what is happening and what's going on. So our goal is to analyze sunlight. All SETI Institute and all searches for extraterrestrial messages are searching for they're searching for messages in distant stars. So when they analyze all these star systems, when they're looking for these radio signals, the one thing that they're not analyzing is the visible light frequencies, because these stars are so far away. But also, I am the first to actually analyze and search for extraterrestrial messages in our star, the sun.
That black curvature piece of metal that you're using, how did you come up with that? Why the curve?
In 2015, I made the discovery. But in 2009, I had the idea while I was living in California. I had light coming in through my window, and I decided to make a rainbow with a little bottle of water, and I had a black fridge next to the window. So I was projecting the light onto the black fridge, and I was taking a digital photograph with an old digital camera. When I was looking at the photographs, I just decided to zoom in for some strange reason. And as I zoomed in to this spectrum, I was able to see these unexplained objects and beings. Like there was a woman walking into a cemetery. She was opening the gate, and you could see tombstones, and there was like bricks surrounding with a metal gate. There was an Indian crossing a creek with 3 men on a horse and a wood cabin to the right. And there was just all these different, there was an army soldier with a bazooka strapped to his back, and he was just smiling like he was happy. There was all these different scenes in the spectrum, and that was in 2009. That initially gave me the idea, so I documented it with a video camera. And years later, I found the video camera, and I remembered, because I was already doing a couple of ghost adventures where I was trying to take photographs of ghosts, which I was very successful at because I've always felt their presence when I'm working in homes and stuff like that. So I grabbed what I could. I knew I needed a black surface. I knew I needed something metal. And when light hits metal, it actually reacts. So it changes from wave to particle. So light can be in two forms. You have waveform and you have particle form. When light impacts metal, it changes from wave to particle. So that may be a major factor. So I knew I needed something metal. I knew I needed something black. So that black tool that you see is actually used to mix paint and spackle.
So why the curvature, though? Is it the way the light reflects off of it? Because a lot of people would say, why not expand the metallic piece to get a bigger picture?
Yeah, that's a good question. I've actually tried a bigger piece, and I've also tried a flat surface. And with the flat surface, and I've also tried a curved surface. So this is bent in. As you can see, the curvature goes inward. And the same with the concave bottle. The curve goes outward. So they curve together. And I believe it has something to do with it in order to have the image appear. So if it was bent in the opposite way, if it was curved downward, the object would be stretched so far it wouldn't make any sense. And if it was flat, the object would still not look like anything. So I believe the curvature has a lot to do with bringing the focal point to where you're processing the light, you're stretching the signal, you're projecting it onto the piece of metal, and then just everything has to be precise in order for it to appear where you're able to see it. I just got lucky, Dave.
Well, that just seems like a little too lucky, if you know what I'm saying. I'm not trying to put down your work, but it just seems like too lucky that. But sometimes it works that way, where you just try one thing and bang, it's right there.
Yeah, I just had the idea. I grabbed what tools I had. I even told people weeks before I was going to do this experiment. I mentioned to people, hey, I got this experiment. I think I have what tools I need. I'm going to go out and I'm going to be able to communicate with ghosts, spirits. And as you can see from that very first photograph, it was one of the early photographs. It was so detailed that, I was in shock mode. I couldn't believe that it actually worked. It was almost like I had no words to describe. And that's when I created my page, Bent Light. And I asked people for answers. And ever since, I've had much ridicule on this discovery. But I'll tell you, the photographs are too detailed to be anything than what they are. And I feel that there needs to be a proper scientific investigation. So I will not stop until these photographs and this research is actually investigated by the proper people so we understand. Because I'm almost certain that there's no way that you could disprove. So then we need to understand what this is, because this is very important.
I agree that it's important, but still, I can see where a lot of people are going to say this is a little bit ridiculous. We've seen things like this before in other aspects, maybe not directly to what you have found out, but they have seen things, William, where people have, I don't want to use the term made up some sort of illusion, because with a story you can pretty much describe anything. But there's a lot of people I could see having troubles believing what you're actually seeing. How do you deal with the criticism?
Well, one way I dealt with it is by doing the research. And what I've been able to do is realize that if you let's just take the experiment. I'm claiming that there's messages in visible light. And you're able to process and see these messages by using this contraption. Well, if you were to break down the visible light frequencies and you see what scientists and people are using to send information, their process is the exact same process. What they have is a camera, and they have some type of mirrors that take the light in, and then it bends the light, and it processes the light through processors and prisms, and it projects that light into the camera. So if you were to look at the technology point, this is completely logical that this is a way to take in data and information. So then by dealing with the criticism, I just continued to research. And I'll tell you this much. By being able to consistently gather these unexplained entities that appear in the light and objects for over 2 years, like it wasn't just all at one time. So to consistently gather these objects with all the technology that's out there, there's no way possible to not at least investigate. And that's the problem. I can't even get scientists to even investigate, because even the scientists are trying to not only ignore, but in their own sense, say what you said earlier, pareidolia or optical caustics, which involves light reflecting through water. And I just don't see those terminology adequate for this situation, because we know light is information.
And that is true. I mean, light has so many different purposes than just brightening up a day. But when you are looking at these photos and you decided to start looking into them deeper, how quickly was it before you started noticing any type of abnormalities?
Well, the spirit one was the first, but then it took me time to be able to develop the ability to see inside these abnormalities. And what it was is there was a couple key photographs that I didn't discover till months later when I had to go back and look through all the photographs. So it takes a lot of training to see into this spectrum to where you're able to decipher what's there, what's not there, what should be there, what shouldn't be there. And with the human spirit, I mean, he was completely, as soon as I seen it, I was able to see that one. But a lot of them, in the end, they blend in with the background. So they are very difficult to detect. But once you see them, you're able to once you see them, then you're able to not see them. So they become more clear. And even people have told me if they look at the photographs once and then they come back and look at them again, the more they look at them, the clearer they get. And there has been another scientist, Doug, I believe his name is Doug Backhoff. He works for Medi International. Now, Medi International is trying to send messages to extraterrestrial life by using lasers and inputting information into data and targeting stars. He has even said that if we were able to detect an extraterrestrial message, it would look like a cosmic ink blot test, the Rorschach ink blot test. So what you're looking at here is almost like a cosmic ink blot test. So top scientists in this field have already theorized what these messages would look like. And now I brought this information to them, and they completely ignore it and then basically go out on their own and try their own thing. Now, SETI Institute is actually using almost the exact same process that I'm using. I contacted them in 2015, and now in 2016, they developed a device to analyze the spectrum with a prism, which bends the light and projects that light into a camera. So these top industries searching for messages are using my methods, and they're still not accepting this as self-evident.
Why do you think SETI research has been so difficult to come around to you in regards to this?
Because in the past 30 years, they have spent millions and millions of dollars. And I come out of the blue. I just had an idea. I went out and I did it. And I was able to search somewhere no one ever thought to look. And I discovered these messages. So they don't want to admit that throughout all their science and all their schooling and all their funding, their millions of dollars of funding, they don't want to admit that just some regular civilian with a bottle of water was able to detect these messages, because it makes them look bad. Even other programs, I mean, you have NASA, you have all these different programs. Scientists just don't like to admit when they're wrong, or admit if there wasn't something they didn't know. And seeing that it was a very simple discovery, it was simply overlooked. The digital camera wasn't invented until 1975, which that only leaves a 30-year span for this discovery to be made, because I believe the digital camera has a lot to do with how this discovery happened. And if scientists are only trying to look at things smaller, quantum level or molecular level or atoms, they left out the macroscopic realm, which is visible in larger objects. So they just simply overlooked this, or scientists discovered this because it is a simple discovery, and they're keeping it classified. There's a good possibility, because this is a very simple discovery. I've had it out for over 3 years. I'm almost certain there's no way possible scientists overlooked this. And if that is the case, The only thing they're doing is trying to cover it up.
Have you talked to any university professors about this?
I have discussed this with a few physicists, and I'm always welcome any physicists that are listening to the show, or anyone in that sense who would like to reach out or contact me about this subject. Feel free to contact me. I have dealt with a few physicists. A lot of them, like I said, scientists don't like to admit when they overlook something or they're wrong. Dark matter, neutrinos, ghost-like particles, stuff like that. But there was one physicist who did was looking at the actual method and realized that it is a new instrument. So basically the design, the concept, everything that I invented to analyze this light is a new invention. And it's never been done before. So he did see the process is completely different. But you have to remember, I didn't just find regular data. We're dealing with extraterrestrials. We're dealing with human souls. We're dealing with I don't even know if I could comprehend how significant this discovery is. And for that reason alone, I do not believe that scientists are willing to jump out on that limb yet and say, okay, this is bizarre. You know, we're not alone. So when it comes to the subject of ghosts, people are afraid to go down that road. Consciousness, people are afraid to go down that road. What is consciousness? Where is it? Scientists don't know. So scientists can't say that photograph that you saw isn't a photograph of consciousness because they've never seen it. They don't know where it is. So there's all these unknowns in the quantum realm of the universal law of physics. So there's all these unknowns. So for scientists to just close the door, that's ridiculous because there's so much that's not known. So I do believe that they need to open the door and be more open to seeing something that is different than what they've been taught.
And I can understand and I can hear the passion in your voice about this, but maybe that is the idea, is to try and find a university professor who is willing to take what you were saying seriously. I mean, unfortunately, when it comes to these topics, the minute you bring up UFOs or paranormal, the door closes on your face quicker than you can say hello and goodbye. You know, I mean, there has to be someone out there through connections that you've made over the last couple of years, or whomever, that might be able to might be willing to look at this.
You know what? I came to this point, and I'm glad we're having this conversation. You know, I've been in contact with Steve Bassett. I've been in contact with Grant Cameron. I've been in contact with Nick Pope. I can just list a few. Seth Shostak. Who else? Mark D'Antonio, the lead astronomer for MUFON. You know, I've been in contact with all these people, and I could keep going down a list of people who I have contacted. And all of these people that are in the disclosure community they hear it out and they completely ignore it or dismiss it. So it's like, it's new, it's different, it's something they've never seen. Do they not believe? I don't know. But is it fair for them to dismiss something that is so logical yet plausible that we know light can transfer through visible light frequencies? There is no one in the disclosure community discussing contact with extraterrestrial civilizations using quantum entanglement and visible light frequencies. I can't think of any that are out there discussing this. So for everyone to only focus on UFOs or focus on this and focus on that, or UFOs back in the 70s and the 80s, how about we look at the technology that is here now? China is leading the way in quantum technologies. They just developed a quantum radar, which uses quantum entanglement, and it could render any object visible regardless of the stealth. So now there's no way to avoid being detected by these quantum machines. Also, China has been using quantum communication. So they're able to entangle particles from space with Earth, and they were able to stream the very first video conference via particles of light, entangled. So the information is not being sent, it's almost like a mirror. When you entangle a particle of light, when you look into one particle, the opposite particle is able to decipher the exact information. So there's all this technology and nobody's talking about it. I do not understand why they continue to ignore or not investigate. But that is why I'm going to continue the experiment. I'm going to continue to show people the path of how to do this, but also the technology that is there. I just believe it's too new. Does that make sense?
I can appreciate that, but with all due respect to some of the names that you dropped, like Grant Cameron and Stephen Bassett, they're not really scientists. They're more researchers and reporters of the news. And have you tried, though, any universities, whether, I'm thinking people like, even in the Bigfoot community, you got Dr. Jeff Meldrum in the University of Idaho.
I'm doing my best to network. As far as scientists, I've reached out to a lot of different scientists. I haven't heard of who you just mentioned, and like I said, I'm new to the disclosure world. I've been doing this experiment for 3 years. I'm trying to network. I'm doing my best to put this information out there so people can see it. But as far as when it comes to communicating with the proper people, I don't believe that I've maybe found the right people to communicate my results to. I assume the people that I contacted in the beginning would, like NASA or SETI Institute or MUFON, but they seem to have not been able to assist me.
We're going to go to our first break of the night here, so I'm going to get you to hold on. But I think what I'd like to do is I'm going to get my resident scientist here with Spaced Out Radio, Eric Markham, to get a hold of you, because I think he could probably give you a hand with something like that. The beauty of having a scientist on the team is we can do things like that around here, William. So our guest tonight is William Lawrence. His website, bentlights.com. He's saying he's being able to see into different realms through his photography by the use of water. It's actually kind of interesting. You could check out his gallery. Go to bentlights.com/gallery to see the pictures that we are looking at. We're going to get more into this in hour number 2 with William Lawrence right after this.
Find your escape where time has no limits. It's about living today and cherishing the heritage of yesterday. A spirit of adventure for what is new, with the nostalgia of the past. Your timepiece is a reflection of who you are. Life surrounded by beauty from the world around us to the soul within. EscapeWatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Lori and Fenton here, SOR listeners. Join me at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th, where 14 presenters discuss all things disclosure, UFOs, and aliens. Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address disclosure. Preston Dennett will present Inside UFOs. Your Dave Scott and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien contact. Get tickets at caufocon.com.
The freedom to post what you want, when you want. That's the social media freedom you need. Social Media Freedom is the free app in your app store. No need to worry about going to jail or being shadow banned any longer. It's the freedom to say what you feel. The freedom to know Big Brother isn't watching. It's the way social media is supposed to be. Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free. Download from your app store today.
Coming September 28th to the 30th, it's our first annual Caribou Paracon, put on by Spaced Out Radio and the Canadian Society of Questers. 3 days of paranormal, supernatural, and spiritual knowledge in the beautiful 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia. Tickets are $150 Canadian for the event, being held at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Come watch our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Laurie and Fenton, David Weatherly, Ross Allison, and more. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
Hey Space Travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience, Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag Spaced Out Radio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight, I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Samantha Ellen Ritchie is going to join us. We're going to talk Bigfoot, and we're going to get into some little people as well as we get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. I do want to remind you, tomorrow night will be my final show of the week. I am going to be heading down south to San Francisco for UFO Con 2018 at the Holiday Inn Airport Hotel. I will be speaking at 3:30 p.m. on Sunday about my own personal experiences. We're going to be putting that on live either on Facebook or Periscope. I haven't decided which one yet. I will let you know. But if you're in the San Francisco area, we would love it if you'd come on down to UFO Con 2018. Come say hello. I will be there. I'd love to shake your hand and meet you. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Arenaceous. Arenaceous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can watch us live Monday through Friday on periscope.tv. We are also on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. TalkStream Live. Tune us in on TuneIn. Download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You could shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, rock out to some Bumblefoot, read up on the encounter online, and you can also watch great videos from UFO Seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. Tonight we are talking about potential ET intelligence and communications with William Lawrence from BentLights.com. He has been able to create some incredible photos using the sun, water, and a little black object that's kind of like a semicircle. It's really cool indeed. You could check out these photos by going to bentlights.com/gallery if you want to check them out. William, welcome back.
All right, thanks. Glad to be back. You know, Dave.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. When you said the black surface, in some of my research, I've realized that Nostradamus was using a similar technique to make his predictions, and also John Dee and Kelly back in, I think it was the 1800s, could even have been the 1400s. They were using a similar technique as well, using a crystal and bending light and projecting it to a black object, and they were able to communicate with spirits, or what they thought were spirits at the time.
Well, you could say the same thing for the Frank's box as well, and the experimentations that they did with the Skoll experiment.
Yeah, and the same with the paranormal realm. You have these EVPs, these electronic voice phenomenons that show up on these digital audios and stuff. So this is similar to an EVP, but instead of being audio, it's actual video and image feed.
Very cool indeed. Very cool indeed. I got a question from Gail coming in on Periscope. She is asking, what kind of messages are you receiving from these ET entities?
The actual messages, instead of being like a message to put you into a certain direction, it's not that. The messages are actually photographs of them. So they're showing themselves in these images, and what they're able to do for the first time is have a platform where they're able to become visible to us on Earth. So by that, in one of the photographs, there's 3 extraterrestrial beings. One looks like a gray, The one in the middle, it looks like a tall man or woman with a robe, and the guy on the right is a bald man wearing a suit. So they're always looking into the camera. So they're always looking in, and what they're able to do is appear and show themselves. There was a couple of photographs which were like messages. One was a light being, an alien being riding on a beam of light, and he was looking through the rear end of a spyglass. Galileo, who invented the telescope, the spyglass, and the alien being is looking through the rear end of the telescope, and at the very bottom end you see the eyepiece. I took that as a message, as they were saying, hey, you know, we can see you and now you can see us. So they're not actually just sending messages. It's almost like a extraterrestrial Instagram where they're able to just upload themselves and we can actually see them for the first time. So the messages are themselves.
With these messages, so there's nothing written or anything coming in some sort of code that you've been able to find just yet?
No, the only code, there has been a few letters or numbers that would appear, but it was only once, I think there was one or two. One was a Z and the other was like an S. And then the only letters that appeared was on my radio display. Back in when I first made the discovery, my radio started going crazy as I was leaving a job, so I started videotaping it. And on my radio display started flashing, and there was a song playing by Beach House called Space Song. And on the display, it appeared these weird symbols. The first symbol was a leaf. The second, third, and fourth symbol looked like numerical, and then the very last symbol looked like a horse with a dash next to it. And I was able to document this on film, so I drew it out. And I just posted these photographs on my Bent Light Facebook page where people can see the photographs that we're discussing, but also the descriptions of the actual photographs. So the only letters I was able to receive was through my radio display.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. There is so much information that people are trying to find out in regards to any sort of contact. Why do you think what you have been able to find out is something special?
The main reason for that is scientists have always analyzed radio waves searching for messages, and they haven't analyzed the visible light frequency range. And what I'm certain of is that there are these messages being sent to us from other civilizations. And in order to detect these messages, there's a certain frequency where these messages are encoded. And basically what I discovered was that frequency. You know, it's already been proven that information can travel on this frequency. The government, our government, is using this technology as we speak. They have been using visible light frequencies for over 30 years. But most of the public only knows about the radio frequencies. So we're limited to megabytes. So we could stream data and information at megabytes a second. But the government is using DARPA, for example, and the government of China, India, Australia, and Russia are all using these visible light frequencies. But the information is kept classified. So what makes this discovery unique and special is that not only have I discovered these other civilization messages, but governments are already using the exact same frequency that I discovered the messages in. So there's a good possibility that if I discovered these messages, that the governments around the world could already know that there is other civilizations trying to contact us.
Mm-hmm. Soon after you started making this discovery with the photographs, how did the UFO visitation start to take off?
Yeah, the very first was the orange sphere, and that was a close encounter, and it was very bizarre because it was just very strange. There was another one that looked like a flying winged It was orange. It was an orange blob that just came through the air. And it was pretty large, and it looked like flying wings, and it was just moving sideways really fast. But majority, I would say 95% of the visitations were high up in the air, high altitude. They look like little blue dots, stars that would appear. But then they would start moving in different directions, and then they would stop. And sometimes they would come down real low, and then they would stop, and then they would shoot directly up to space really fast. Now, these were very common. All the high-altitude visitations that looked like stars, that was happening almost on a weekly basis. One of them I was able to capture on camera with a camera that I actually purchased that has a pretty good zoom for that particular instance with these high-altitude. And what I was able to capture was some type of unknown ship, and all I saw with my eyes was a blue dim light. But once I zoomed into the image, it was a small, like, metallic spear, and you could see the little blue dim light, but it was almost it almost had the appearance of a plane. So it was like invisible, but there were certain key aspects, 1, 2, 3, 4 different areas that were visible. The others were kind of invisible. But now this object was stationary, so it wasn't moving. So with all these visitations, that's what kept me so interested in this discovery. So that's why I'm here discussing it with you today.
So with the UFO aspect, as you started taking more photographs, did the UFOs become more frequent at that time?
For the very first year, I was getting extreme ridicule. So the UFOs were highly frequent for the very first year and then up until the second year. So they continued, and I felt this way is in the beginning I questioned everything. I didn't know if I should even be doing this. So I felt like they were trying to keep me involved. Like I would say, why am I doing this? And then they would appear. So then that would give me the motivation to continue my work. But now I'm to the point to where I've done so much research, I don't need them to appear anymore. So I'm just going to continue to search for answers and continue the experiment. So in the beginning, I believe they were only visiting me just to keep me involved, because there's a good possibility that if they weren't visiting me like they were, I may have not have pursued this as passionately as I have. And now if you take, for example, the photographs, the discovery, the evidence, and you put that aside, and then you take all these visitations, the UFOs. You know, I never had a visitation like this before in my life until this discovery, and you put those two together, you know, everything starts to fit into place, and it all comes to one thing, that these beings are not only here, they're visiting us, but they're not appearing, but they're able to communicate with us. And I believe once we have this physical contact, once we're able to communicate back and forth with them, I have a good feeling that they will be making a physical appearance. So they'll definitely come down. They'll be here. We'll be able to exchange information, data, technology, whatever that would be. But I believe they're afraid to land until we're able to communicate. And if they're only in communication with our government, and the government is keeping it classified, they're going to wait until the public knows about them.
Since all of this started, you mentioned that the contact with some sort of extraterrestrials has been coming through. Have you then become an ET contactee face-to-face or an abductee?
Not whatsoever. The only experiences that I have had is through the experiment and then through the visitations of the UFOs. I have not been able to telepathically hear them. I don't talk to them. I can't speak in their behalf because I don't know what they want to say. The only thing I can do is show what I have gathered, the evidence of them, the images, and I can just put that out there. But the one thing I try not to do is make up like anything about them. Like, what are they trying to say? I can't talk to them. The only thing I can do is take their photograph. So the best thing for me to do is continue to photograph them and put these images out there, and then have scientists investigate that, and that's the main goal.
Question from Dawn coming in from the chat room. She is asking, William, have you ever experimented with other sources of light? If so, what are the results?
In the beginning, with all the ridicule that I was having, I had to use all different types of lights. So I was trying out every type of light that I could in running the exact same experiment that I was running during the daytime with the sunlight. And what I discovered is with all the artificial lighting, I was unable to duplicate what I was getting. The results that I was getting with our sunlight, I could not duplicate with artificial light. Even though I was able to duplicate the spectrum of the sun with the light, and I was able to get the prism, I was unable to get photographs or any type of consistency that was the same consistency with the light from our sun. So I do believe that in order to read these messages, it can't be done with artificial light at this time, only sunlight. And now that has worked for me. There is a possibility that it could be done, but I believe the sun is connected. So these other civilizations are able to encode data in our sun. And if I was in another galaxy and I needed to send a message to Earth, I'm not going to be able to see planet Earth. I'm not going to be able to pinpoint a satellite from another galaxy. But what I could do is target the star. As long as I knew the location of the star, I could target the star. I could quantum entangle my data with the photons of the star, and then anyone with access to the light from the sun would be able to actually process the information that I'm sending them. So it would be easier to target a light source to exchange information. So if I was in another galaxy, I'm not going to be able to pinpoint an artificial light. But I do know the location of the sun, and I can pinpoint that sun, send the information, and anyone who has access to the sun could actually get the information that I'm sending them.
Well, this leads to Psycho's question in the chat room. Have you ever experimented with infrared light then? Because a lot of paranormal objects are caught on IR.
Yeah, I have not experimented with infrared. I haven't ran the experiment with any type of IR cameras. I do know this, and this is through my research, that infrared is also being used to transmit data and information, and they're able to transmit between 100 gigabytes a second up to around 600 gigabytes a second. So they're able to transmit information in the infrared spectrum. See, the electromagnetic spectrum consists of radio. You have infrared, you got UV, visible light frequencies, you have X-ray, gamma ray. All of these frequencies you can encode data into, but radio is at the very low band, so you can only send bits of information, like megabytes, like we were talking, maybe up to 1 gigabyte. But then as you get to infrared, you're able to send 100 gigabytes a second. And then when you move up to visible light, ultraviolet, you're able to send up to 900 gigabytes a second. And if that continues, I imagine when you get up to X-ray and gamma ray, you'd be able to send a lot more than 1,000 gigabytes a second. So we're dealing with information. We're dealing with frequency modulation. And as far as the infrared goes, we're not dealing with actual photographs or taking photographs or images. We're dealing with the frequency band and modulation. So it's like a radio. If you were to tune the radio station and you change the channel to the radio and you're tuning in another frequency, and that's all exists in the radio spectrum. Now, this is the same with the visible light spectrum, the same with the infrared spectrum. If you have the proper processor, you could tune in to stations that exist in these frequencies. And that is what makes this so amazing as a discovery, is that all these frequencies have information. We just need to process it.
Trip is asking, recently people with head injuries are getting visions like this. Have you heard of any, or have you had a head injury or possibly ayahuasca or anything to help see these visions clearer?
Well, remember, I had the idea, just an idea that I had in 2009. As far as that goes, I don't have visions, so I'm not able to imagine or see or communicate whatsoever. What I'm able to do is run an experiment and take photographs. And then what I do is I analyze the data from the photographs to come to my conclusion. So all of this is experimental. So I'm not having these visions or having dreams or anything whatsoever. So I don't know if I could relate to that question properly.
So getting back to the whole pareidolia aspect of everything, because I think for a lot of people who are looking at the photos, and I'm reading the comments here for a second, a lot of people out there, they want to see, and they are seeing things, but it's very tough to convince people that their eyes just aren't playing tricks with the image that could be appearing, because it is well known scientifically that our eyes try to match up something that we recognize with our brain and think, oh yeah, that's what it is. So do you think then, looking outside of the pareidolia aspect, that maybe, just maybe, what you aren't encountering is aliens, but maybe seeing into a different dimension? Even
if it was another dimension, which could be very well possible, or a parallel, another realm, there's no telling. I have no clue where these entities are. But what I do know is that there's no way possible that you could explain this discovery or debunk it as pareidolia, because there are no known cases of pareidolia that are objects forming in light. It's never been done before. And even if you were to take most pareidolia cases, they're like a mile long. They're really large objects. And even when you break it down to smaller objects, they're physical objects. So when we're dealing with light, that's not the case. There's no way you could describe it as that. So when it comes to knowing where these entities are, with this new technology, they could be anywhere. They could be in another realm. They could be in another galaxy. They could be in another universe. They could be in another dimension. The one thing we don't know is where they are. But the one thing you could do is trace it. With quantum entanglement, if you were to be able to reverse the signal, once you detect the signal and you know you detected the signal, if you had the proper technology, you would be able to detect where that signal is coming from and pinpoint their location, whether it be here, whether it be in another galaxy. That's unknown. But with the proper technology, you should be able to trace it.
Do you think then, though, that there is the possibility that it may not be what's happening up in space that's communication, though, but it is actually looking into a different dimension?
If that was a scenario, there's a good possibility that it exists around us. So, I mean, we could be existing parallel with another dimension. And there's a good possibility, because if you take, for example, spirits, we know that they exist on Earth. So there's these occurrences that are happening with these supernatural beings. And so how are they here? Or why are they here? Or are they caught in between? So we know if they can exist here, there's a good possibility there's multiple dimensions, because they're existing in another dimension. So these other beings could exist exactly where we are, but then they're in another dimension like you're stating. So honestly, I don't know where they're from. I do know we could probably ask them once we develop the technology properly, because they do want to communicate. So once we develop this technology to where we're able to send them information, which they could already see us, but once we're able to properly talk to them, we could ask them this question and probably find out the answer.
So how then do you bridge that gap to create more communication that is fully understandable between both sides?
I have actually been working on a new project where I'm able to extract audio from the sunlight. So these visible light frequencies, I'm working on an audio project. And what I'm going to try to do is get a foundation for the sound so I could hear them. And I do believe if scientists got involved, So we know we can photograph them. So once the scientists get involved, they see what's going on, they're able to duplicate the experiment, but in a much more professional way with their whatever they would use. Not only are we going to have a video feed, we could break it down. I'm taking still photographs, but I see the potential for live video feed. But then with the audio project, if you merge the audio with the video feed, not only will we be able to see them, we'll be able to hear them. Once contact is established, then we could take the steps of finding out how. And there's a good possibility they're already going to speak our language. And I already know for a fact that they acknowledge being seen. So they can already see us. So once this technology is adapted properly, under the right conditions, we will have contact with them. And I do believe when that happens, that is when we'll be able to get the answers that we're searching for as human beings. You know, where are they? Why are we here? And what is really going on in the universe? And why don't we know about it yet? We are still a very young civilization, and we are still evolving, but I do believe this is going to take us to the next level of civilization.
Elizabeth is asking, have you ever put this theory by any abductees or contactees?
I'm in contact with a lot of people that have been in contact with these beings, and there's a lot of similar stories that I've heard, and a lot of them have what they say these visions, you know, that we discussed earlier, or they're able to telepathically communicate. And what I was able to do from there is realize that our brain is a quantum processor. So the same way I'm able to do this outside the box, they're doing it inside the box. So there's a good possibility that these beings that I'm communicating with can communicate telepathically with humans via these visible light frequencies using their own brain. So it's all going to be connected. And what we're seeing is everything is connected through these quantum visible light frequencies. So there are a few that have came to, not to, some have seen what I have seen, but a lot of people tell different stories. And there's so many stories in the disclosure realm right now. You know, we don't know what to believe. And I'm not going to mention names of who's out telling stories, but what I'm saying is there's just so much information. There could be disinformation along with proper information. And what we're looking for is a way to assess what is logical and what's non-logical. So I try to follow the evidence, but I do try to listen when people contact me.
Elizabeth has a follow-up question. Do you know anything about quantum computers made of sheets of rolled graphene where fermions are used to communicate and process?
With all the quantum computers, what they're able to do is process data much faster and quicker. As far as the logistics of how they're built and what they're doing, I don't know too much technical expertise on that, but what I do know is they are using visible light frequencies, they are using crystals and other modulation techniques, and they're able to keep information in photons. So they're able to use light and store data in light, which is extremely important to how we're going to move from this level that we're at now to the level where we're going. We'll be able to store information in light. And what I'm saying is the sun is light. So there's a good possibility that you could even store data and information in the sun. And if you were to quantum entangle that data with the center of the sun where the light starts, it takes millions of years for those light particles to come out. So you would have a hard drive that is able to keep unlimited amount of data for millions of years. So it's quite bizarre to think about how it could be logical or possible, but anything that has to do with light is involved and everything is connected.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's get to another question here. Catalina is asking, have you been able to figure out, William, any other frequencies different from ones and zeros?
That's a great question. What we're looking at in the photographs and what she is referring to is binary code. All communication has always been processed, radio, regardless of how you're sending it. It all takes the data, like if you have a photograph, and it separates it from being a photograph and translate it into zeros and ones. Even when you send a message, email, regardless, anything that we send is being transferred and processed into binary. What I'm discussing today, and this may be why it's so difficult to understand, is that we do not need binary. We do not need ones and we do not need zeros. Just how you look into a mirror and you're able to see yourself. This is the same concept as quantum entanglement, where you have a particle. So I'm able to input this information here as live real-time data and information, and it's able to be processed somewhere else. So you're basically looking into a mirror, but that mirror, the other side of that mirror is going to be on the other side of the universe. So you don't need to break down the data into ones and zeros. You could just send the data as the data, and that's what makes us very unique.
Let's get to John's question here, and John is asking, how does size matter when it comes to what is triggering one's pareidolia?
Well, if you were to look at the cases, I mean, most people say they see faces on the moon or faces in clouds. Now, the photographs that I have taken, you have to remember, the objects that are appearing. They're smaller than the face of a coin, and they're appearing in almost perfect detail. They show symmetry, and they have laser precision detail, the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the shoulder blades. For these objects to appear with such clarity but be so small, it's almost improbable to even think about how they're able to form. When it comes to pareidolia cases, there really aren't any pareidolia cases on small objects smaller than the coin. And if there are, I would like for people to, refer me to those. But where I'm getting at is, regardless of if it is an object or a physical object, almost 99% of all pareidolia cases are physical objects. And when we're dealing with light, information can be encoded in light. So I just feel if we were to just come out and just say, okay, it's pareidolia, and not investigate it, I feel that would be the wrong step for us to take as a civilization. I feel that there's enough evidence for it to be investigated, and I feel that pareidolia cannot explain it. So I guess it's just about what one person thinks and what another thinks. But as far as what I've seen, I don't feel that scientifically that could be an explanation.
Tripp is asking, with your findings, do you think we are in some sort of matrix then?
A computer program is a good possibility. If everything under the sunlight with quantum entanglement and these processors that can process thousands, trillions of gigabytes a second, there's a good possibility that everything under the sun could be captured as data, frequencies, and then be transferred into a computer, and then a holographic version of that or another version could be built with the proper technology. So there could be, other realms that are exactly the same as ours. So with this technology, there's a good possibility that what we see is only an illusion, right? Even though we feel that physically it's real, but we know we have a soul. We know we go somewhere else after Earth. So everything that we're seeing may not be reality, but reality may begin after we leave Earth and return to the source, and whatever that source may be. So I definitely think that the movie The Matrix is almost spot on as to what we're dealing with.
All right, with the unknown language that was appearing on your photographs, did that appear anywhere else as well?
It was only on the radio, and it was only that one time that my radio display did that. And the only place I could find a language similar to that language was actually the Emerald Tablet by Thoth. That was the only place I could find similar letters or symbols.
Have they tried to communicate through the photography, though?
That's exactly how. Well, the process is almost like a spectrometer, so a spectroscopy on a macroscopic scale. But the only way I'm able to communicate with them is through photography. So by taking a digital photograph of the light on the metal after it's processed with the water projected through the concave lens, then I'm able to see photographs of them. So it's like a process of how to tune in the visible light frequency. So that's the only way I'm able to physically communicate with them is through photography.
So with the new quantum communication technology, visible light communication technology, and the free space optical program currently in use by NASA and the Department of Defense, how do you feel that you are able to take all of that and develop what you are working on? Especially since you're not getting a lot of rousing support from people who may want to take a look at this.
Yeah, and that's an interesting question because I know that these government organizations are not only experimenting with this, they're using these frequencies, but any mainstream or public scientist that I communicate with will not even go into discussion with me over this topic. And you don't see anyone discussing the free space optical program or these visible light frequency communication technologies, and I do not understand why no one is discussing it. The only way to describe it is as if, it's a matter of national security. If the government is using this technology to keep us safe, there's a good possibility that there's no technology better than this technology, so they have to keep it sealed until they can discover something that's even more advanced so they could keep up with this technology, so they can't release it to the public. But now, this is just in this year, DARPA and the United States Air Force are studying a new form of bent light. And what they're able to do and what they did is the exact copy of my experiment. But instead of using a macroscopic scale, they're using microscopes. And what they're doing is they're using a blue laser positioned underneath a lattice, which is almost like a crystal. And they're able to see into the spectrum of atoms for the first time. So scientists are going public with microscopic analyzation of the spectrum, but they're not going onto the macroscopic scale. So it's very confusing, and sometimes it's hard to deal with when the government is using the technology, but when you go to people in the public, they don't believe you because the technology is kept secret. So it's very difficult on my end to project this message.
Has anybody come up to you and said, you better watch what you're doing then? Because if the government feels that they have some sort of competition in some sort of communication aspect with extraterrestrials, they usually like to know about it.
Yeah, well, honestly, the best thing to do is completely ignore it and pretend that I'm not here. But I believe it was 2015 or 2016, both years. In 2015, I had these strange email that I was hacked in by China and I was hacked in by Russia within the same week. So they hacked into my computer. And then in 2016, I was hacked by Russia again, but they sent me a message, and the message was sent from St. Petersburg, Russia. And the message was actually written in Turkish. So I had to go to Google Translator to translate the message. And this message I put on my page publicly when I got it. And what the message said was a death threat. It basically said that it was all written in code, but it was in the Turkish language. It said keywords. It said my name, but they used the word Billy instead of William. They said singer-songwriter. And then they had the word NASA inside there, and then they had the word alien inside there. But then right after that message, because there was like 2 messages combined, the second message, which was written in Turkish as well, said, "Hey, I am going to become a shell in Florida for the next 6 to 9 months. But before I leave, his life would be over." But instead of using his life would be over, they were saying the Merc train, or they were using this code for murder. And what they were able to do is basically say that they were going to assassinate me before they left here. So I reported this email to the FBI. I sent it to them as soon as I got it. And I traced the IP address to St. Petersburg, and I went public with it. So by me going public and always being public, I've always felt protected. But to get this threat that was in Turkish sent to me from St. Petersburg was very strange. But since then, I have not had any reoccurring instances.
So why do you think somebody in Russia with a Turkish writing would want to harass you over this?
I don't believe they're trying to harass me. I believe that since China and Russia have been following my work since 2015, what I believe is maybe they intercepted something and they were able to send it to me, but I don't know who, because they were saying I would become a shell for 6 to 9 months, and before I leave, the Merc train is going to catch up with him, and this and that, and it was just very strange. So I feel that Russia may have intercepted a message from someone else, and they seen that it was relevant to what I was doing, so they just sent me the information. So they sent me an email with this message in it from St. Petersburg, and the message was about me, but it was written in Turkish. So it was very strange. And this is the first time I've revisited this moment in probably over 1.5 years. But it was definitely strange indeed whenever I got that message.
What did the authorities say to you when you got that message?
They never returned my call. Or what I did is I called them. I told them about it. They told me to email them. I emailed them, but that was it. I never had a reply. So I was just glad that I was able to send it so they could see it. I wrote down my message of why it concerned me, and that was it. But as far as being able to discuss these things with government officials, I've been unable to do so, because anytime you bring up the word extraterrestrial, they completely dismiss and do not want to hear anything about it. So if secretly they're able to do something and protect, maybe if I was in danger, maybe they were able to stop it or do something. I have no idea, but I'm to the point now, it's not about life or death. It's not that I feel like I'm in danger. You know, I'm only communicating my results to an experiment, and that's all I can do. So I got past the point of fear. There is no fear that I can fear, because, you know, this is a real thing. I'm going to continue to promote it regardless of the consequences, because I feel this is bigger than anything that I've ever seen.
That surprises me that any type of agency wouldn't take a threat like that seriously, especially from a foreign government.
No, I completely agree with you, but like I said, it was written in code. But as for what it means, I'm not sure. Also, the very first email, when they hacked my computer systems, I was able to trace their IP address to a building, and I even posted. So anytime I get hacked, what I do is I trace the IP address, and I take a screenshot of the actual building who hacked me, and I post it on my Bent Light page. So that way the people know if they're going to get into my computers, I'm able to see where you're at, how you're doing it, and this and that. But with the St. Petersburg, once I realized the message was being sent to me from this building, I actually deleted the photograph of the building. But because I felt like they were actually trying to send me something. So as far as when it comes to government officials, I can't get scientists to work with this. I can't get the officials to work with this. But I can assure you that I'm not going away. I'm going to continue to communicate my results. I'm going to continue the experiment, and I'm 100% certain that I've detected the first extraterrestrial messages, but not in radio waves, but visible light frequency.
Have you conducted any experimentation with lasers?
I have not. I know a buddy of mine that was in Australia was using lasers, and he was actually duplicating the double slit experiment, and he was able to get some fascinating results. But I don't use lasers. The only light source that I use now that I know that works is sunlight. So the only light that I use is an experiment with is I analyze astronomical light, and that is light from the sun.
The history of photography and science and the vast amount of discoveries made with photography, from X-rays to the Hubble Space Telescope, have really only ever needed one good photo to prove what is actually going on. Do you think you've captured that photo, or do you think that you're still waiting for that one photo that is really the icing on the cake to your research?
Actually, I'll be honest with you, Dave. I'm almost 100% positive. The very first photograph that we were discussing, the human spirit with the eyes, nose, mouth, shoulder blades, that is the one photograph. Like the invention of the X-ray, the very first X-ray, I don't know his name offhand, but he had a laboratory in his own house, and he used his wife to take a photograph of her hand. And that X-ray is in the history books now as the very first X-ray. So with photography, even Einstein, when he came out with his theory of relativity and that light bends when it goes around large objects, like large mass objects, it wasn't that was his theory, but it took an astronomer, I believe it was Arthur Eddington, who was able to go out because he believed in Einstein's theory. He was an astronomer that went out and took photographs in 1932, I believe it was, of a solar eclipse. And by his photographs, they were able to prove Einstein's theory that light bends around large mass, because they were able to detect the light that was behind the moon bending around the moon. So all it takes is one photograph. And when you have that photograph, that discovery can be made from the photograph. So in science, you got to have physical evidence. And I do believe that one first photograph that I took is that one solid photograph of, is it consciousness? Is it a supernatural spirit? What is it? Is it extraterrestrial? Regardless, it's something. And what it is what we need to understand. And I do believe this is going to build the foundation to a whole new side of physics.
With the people whom you have shown these photographs to, what has been their reaction to it? I'm curious.
Are we discussing scientists?
Scientists or even your close personal friends?
Right. Majority, there's a lot of people that can't see it, and there's some people that see it instantly. And what it is their reaction is, yes, I see it. A lot of times, too, whenever I network with newer people I meet around the world, I ask them, do you see it? And they just answer me back, yes. And that's it. But if you see what I see, you would see the importance of what it is. You know, this is the very first photograph of this. People have been talking about this for centuries. But now you have physical proof. But I don't feel that people are taking it seriously. I feel that they see it, and then they just completely ignore it. So honestly, I don't know. As far as scientists, they're still in the denial stage. They don't want to admit that someone who didn't go to school for science could make a discovery. But if you were to look back at the invention, and you realize we're dealing with spectroscopy. So we're dealing with like spectrometers and analyzing visible light frequencies. So I believe it was back, and there was a glass maker. I'm not exactly sure which year. 200 years ago, Joseph von Fraunhofer, a Bavarian glassmaker and researcher, experimented in his glass laboratory with simple equipment, and he was able to detect dark lines in the spectrum of sunlight. So what he was able to do was use a prism and analyze the sunlight, and he was able to see these spectral lines. So he was not a scientist. He was self-schooled, and he made one of the biggest discoveries of astrophysics, which is spectral lines, where they're able to analyze elements and tell how far a star is and if it's moving away from us or if it's coming closer. So a simple glassmaker was able to make this discovery. So now we're talking a new discovery in spectroscopy. So if you were to look at the whole entire puzzle, the pieces are fitting. And I just feel with the proper investigation that this is going to go somewhere. I don't know where it's going, but I know it's going somewhere.
We only have a couple minutes here before we have to go to our final break of the night. And I want to get to Michael's question here. In regards to the communication and the message that you're getting in the light, have you tried to reverse that, William, and send aliens messages yourself to see what their reaction may be?
Now, I personally have not done that, but when I came out with this discovery in 2015, there were some communication specialists in California who were actually they were able to develop on their laptop, they were able to use a laser, and they were able to use these modulation techniques. So they were able to take the video from their laptop and transmit that into a laser, and they were pointing it at one of Jupiter's moons. I believe it was Titan, and they were sending actual data to the moon via a laser. Now, I personally don't have the technology to do so, but I do know light can travel. But there's a good possibility they were also sending it in binary. But these extraterrestrial beings, I don't need to send information to them because they can already see me. I don't know how they're seeing me, but they're using some type of technology. So they are acknowledging being seen, and they could see me as I can see them.
If they're seeing you, wouldn't that mean that maybe there is a greater chance that you've maybe been taken or implanted?
That I couldn't comment on. I wouldn't know. But, you know, with this light, because the light is reflecting in, I'm able to see them into the light. There's a good possibility I know for a fact they're seeing me with the same light. So the light that I'm seeing them in, they're seeing me in. As far as what you were saying, I wouldn't know. I have no idea.
Have you ever tried this with moonlight or starlight?
I have actually, and by running with the moonlight, I was able, instead of using that black metal surface, I was able to use just the water in the container and have the lens of the camera directly onto the container. And as I was processing video from the moonlight, I got unexplained sounds, which brought on the audio project of these loud growls. It sounded like two lions talking to each other, growling. And then I was able to see these unexplained objects. There was 3 objects, a woman, a green reptile-like creature, and then on the left it looked like a horse. So I was able to process moonlight, but moonlight is just sunlight reflected off the moon, which is made out of some type of metal. So definitely anything that has to do with sunlight, if you access that light, you process that information, you can extract data from that light and communicate with these beings.
All right, let's put you on hold here. We're going to go to our final break of the night. Our guest tonight is William Lawrence. His website, bentlights.com. It's an intriguing little experimentation that he's doing with light in order to communicate with extraterrestrials. You can find his pictures at bentlights.com/gallery. They're pretty intriguing indeed. Tell me what your thoughts are. I want you to look at them and let us know on Spaced Out Radio. We'll be back with hour number 3 right after this.
Hello, SOR listeners. Lorian Fenton here. Let me ask you, now that disclosure's happened, what does it mean for ufology? For answers, join us at UFOCon 2018 in South San Francisco, California, March 23rd through 25th. Keynote speakers Stephen Bassett, Grant Cameron, and Melinda Leslie address the current disclosure agenda. Dave Scott, yes, you're Dave Scott, and Lynn Buchanan tell of amazing alien encounters. Get your tickets at caufocon.com. That's caufocon.com.
Are you tired of being blocked, shadow banned, or placed in jail for simply posting your thoughts on social media? Social Media Freedom can take care of that for you. Social Media Freedom is the newest and one of the best free new apps that allows you the freedom to post what you want, when you want. It takes seconds to download from your app store. Come join the tribe at Social Media Freedom. It's time to set yourself free.
The first annual Caribou Paracon is happening September 28th to 30th in the 108 Mile Ranch, British Columbia, brought to you by the Canadian Society of Questers and Spaced Out Radio. Come listen to our featured speaker, Grant Cameron, along with Elizabeth Anglin, Paisley Town, Mike Moran, Eric Cooper, and more. It's a 3-day supernatural adventure at the Spruce Hills Resort and Spa. Tickets for the weekend are $150 Canadian. The Caribou Paracon, celebrating everything paranormal.
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, we talk little people in the forest as well as Bigfoot with Washington researcher Samantha Ellen Ritchie. She's going to be with us for the full show. Tomorrow night will be my final show before I fly down to San Francisco for UFO Con 2018. I am either going to use Periscope or Facebook Live to broadcast my speech, which will be at 3:30 Pacific time on Sunday. It'll be about my experiences, but don't worry, we are going to have live programming here. It will not be on Periscope, though. It will be just on the radio, and Thursday night, Elizabeth Anglin will be in. Then Friday night, Joe Roop will be in the captain's chair. I will be back on Monday after a long day of flying and driving to get back home to SOR headquarters. But we will be back for Monday night. Butch Witkowski will be our guest then. So I hope you enjoy the rest of your week. I'm going to have a lot of fun meeting some great names down in San Francisco for UFO Con 2018. If you're in the area, I would love to meet you. So come on by, say hello, and tell me you listen to the show. That would be absolutely fantastic for me. Once again, it's this weekend at the Holiday Inn Airport Hotel. Starts Friday evening, goes right through to Sunday, and come on down and listen to a great bunch of speakers at UFOCon 2018. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We are also live on The Fringe FM. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club, Erinaceous. Erinaceous is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets a password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you could do so live on Periscope.tv every Monday through Friday. We are also on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio if you want to connect live with me during the show as well. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, you can follow me at Dave Scott, SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. You can rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, read up on the encounter online, or watch great videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more. For the final time tonight, we introduce William Lawrence. His website is bentlights.com. He feels that he has been able to find ET messages and intelligence through water photography. It's very interesting indeed. If you go to his website, bentlights.com/gallery, you can check out, there's 34 photos there. It's amazing. Some of the photos that he's captured. I think there might be something there to this. Then again, for all intents and purposes and scientific theory, it might just be pareidolia. We don't know. But it's research that he is continuing to do. William, welcome back.
I'm glad to be back.
I want to get to some audience questions right off the bat, because we always like to keep our audience involved in this show. And Kat is asking, okay, water bends light, so much so that I can hide things in curvatures of the container like a water bottle. How do you know, William, you're not just seeing your own reflection?
I've been asked that before, and you know who actually said that was Seth Shostak. There's no way possible that I'm seeing my reflection, because if you were to look at that first being, I appear physical. There's no way I could appear as a ghost. But also, I'm not a reptile, so I couldn't appear to look with gold reflective eyes. Also, some of the entities and beings that appear are very small, almost the size of the eraser of a pen, but with the tip of a pencil. So they're very, very tiny. So there's no way possible that I would be seeing a reflection of myself, because of the fact that every photograph I take is different. Even with the unexplained beings, there was only one. There's two beings. The gold reflective eye reptile appeared in 2015, and then he reappeared, a different type, not the exact same one, but it was one that looked different, reappeared in 2016. And then there's this bald man that appeared in over 5 different photographs. So those are the only few that reoccur, but they reoccur differently. I just don't see it possible being a reflection when I'm not a ghost, but the photograph that I taken looks like a ghost. So
let's get to Eric's question. He is asking, have you ever been contacted, or have you contacted scientist Nassim Harriman?
I haven't. I would have to, when I listen back to the show, I can take notes, but I haven't heard of who that is, so I'm not sure. I'm doing my best to contact and network with everyone that I can possible that may investigate or look into this. But so far, I've hit roadblocks. But my goal is to continue. So if anyone has any suggestions for people for me to reach out to, please, by all means, send me a message through my website or Facebook, and reach out to me, and I will reach out to who I need to reach out to.
And I think for a lot of people who may be quite skeptical of this, I think the one way to look at it, if you want to check it out with an open mind, is, you're brand new at this. So there is a lot of people whom you don't know. You're kind of learning on the fly, much like riding a bike.
Correct, and I'm trying to access and communicate with the people that I thought would assist me. At first, I thought it would be SETI Institute, but they closed the door. So then I reached out to other people like Grant Cameron, Steve Bassett, Nick Pope. All these people were not so much interested, but still closed the door. So all these people that are advocating for disclosure, I would assume, would have maybe helped me find the proper method and people to contact with this, but I'm not getting any assistance. So I'm having to do everything on my own. So the only thing that I have the power to do is put this stuff out there on a social media platform. I designed a website to put this information out there. And by getting more people to see it, I believe the more people that are able to know that I'm doing this, the higher the probabilities is someone's going to step forward, whether it be a scientist, whether it be Yuri Miller, the Russian billionaire who's running the Breakthrough Project, whether it be anyone on this planet who can actually see what I'm doing and bring it to the next level. I'm all for that. So,
where do you go in your research from here? What is the next step for you to try and build on this type of communication?
Well, currently, like I said, I have an audio project, which I haven't released. I'm working on audio at this time. I'm doing the experimentation with that. Also, too, instead of taking still photographs, I'm going to be taking video from here on out. So now I'm trying to bring in, I was able to capture these entities on some of the experimental video captures. And I do believe with the video, there's a good possibility if I can capture one in the moment, which I already have, then I can have even more evidence to go along with the actual discovery. So my goal is to continue the experiment, but also with the research, I got to follow all the new discoveries right now. So what I do with my social media site, Bent Light, is I can continue to post what I discover. Now, I found that DARPA has an experiment exactly like this. There's scientists around the world experimenting with all this new quantum physics and this visible light frequency. So I'm just basically gathering information, and I'm continuing my experiment, and eventually everything is going to connect.
Do you have anybody working with you on this at this time?
I do have people around the world, and like I said, I release my methods publicly. As soon as I made the discovery, I went public. I'm completely transparent on everything that I do. Even though I was ridiculed for the tools that I'm using, even top scientists are ridiculing me because I'm using a water bottle and a piece of metal. But regardless of that, it's not about the tools. It's about the evidence. Simple tools work. So I'm working with a few people. I have a guy in New York, and there's a couple other people around the world that are doing the experiment. And in any time that someone sends me a photograph with this experiment, what I do is I analyze it. If it looks legit to me, I post it in my global Bent Lights album of people around the world sending photographs. So my goal is to just let people see this process, so other people can do this experiment, and I'm really looking forward to the first confirmation of a detailed photograph. So far, I haven't seen the exact detail of my photographs, but when someone does capture that detail, then from there, they're going to have the same excitement that I had when I made the discovery, and then we could work together too. So I'm trying to collaborate with everyone that I can.
Kat is wondering if you have a favorite picture that you have taken, and if so, what's the number of it on your website?
Yeah, well, the number order will be on my Facebook, which I just posted the photographs 1 through 15. As far as the website, I don't have the website up at this time, but my favorite image would have to be the very first image on the website, which is the human spirit, the eyes, nose, mouth. And then also another one of my favorite images would have to be Galileo's spyglass, where the alien being was riding on a beam of light, looking through the rear end of the old telescope. For me, that was one of my favorite images, because that was one of the only images they were trying to show a message, like, you can see us, we can see you. But there's many photographs. There's one of a halo going around a bald man, and you can see this orange halo going around the bald man. That's another one of my favorites. But I would have to say the human spirit and the gold reflective eyes and the alien being riding on a beam of light, looking through the rear end of the telescope, are my top 3.
Very, very cool. I think there is possibly something here to it. I want to continue on with the questioning, and of course, audience, if you have more questions, we will get them into them. Now, I'm still very curious, William, in regards to the whole connection between paranormal activity and the extraterrestrial activity. Did you find, when you connected the two, that the experiences not only with the UFOs and aliens increased, but paranormal activity with ghosts and spirits also increased as well?
Actually, whenever I made the discovery, the extraterrestrial activity amped up. But as far as the paranormal side, it came to a halt. Like before, I would be feeling the presence of entities in houses, and I was able to photograph on my Bent Light YouTube channel. I got a photograph of one of the ghosts that I captured in a house that I was working in, and it came directly across the video feed. It was very strange. So before I made the discovery, I was always feeling the presence of spirits, but after I made the discovery, it came to a halt, to where now I don't ever feel I feel like there's a bubble around me that keeps these entities away, to where I'm only able to communicate with these now extraterrestrial beings. So I don't know how that would coincide, but yeah, as far as paranormal, nothing paranormal ever since the discovery.
Now, so you didn't have any type of ghostly activity, so how can you say that there is a connection between the two?
Well, the reason for that is because I already know that spirits exist, but if you were to take the very first photograph, that is a photograph of a spirit that looks human. So the connection that I'm seeing is that our soul is extraterrestrial. It moves on. So our soul doesn't exist on Earth. So automatically, without my discovery, if you were just to take just that alone, we have a soul. That soul leaves our body and goes somewhere else. So what does that make the soul if it doesn't exist here? Extraterrestrial. So there's already a connection between the extraterrestrial and the paranormal. But through my study, I've found that not only am I capturing human-like entities, I'm capturing these advanced reptiles as well. So they're automatically connected. I don't see how it could not be connected.
Well, I understand that it is theorizing that the two could possibly be connected, and I do believe there is a strong connection between the two. But normally, from people I have talked to in regards to this, they have seen a full-on advance from both sides, both the spiritual and ghostly, and the alien and extraterrestrial. And if you wanted, you could even throw in the crypto side when they start investigating everything together, when they find that missing puzzle piece that kind of glues both together. And yet you haven't experienced that. You're just theorizing. I'm very surprised by that.
Well, I wouldn't even call it a theory. I mean, I'm showing you physical evidence of non-physical entities existing. But where I'm getting at is whenever I made this discovery, I don't go out searching for spirits or ghosts anymore. So maybe there's a good possibility that I'm blocking that part out, and I'm only focusing on this technology and on this discovery. So, I mean, there's a good possibility I could go out and photograph, if I wanted to, paranormal activity. But I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is solely focus on this visible light frequency modulation and only solely focus on this. But as far as the connection that I made, the connection I made is based off of actual factual evidence. So there is no theory. This is not a theory. When I invented the method to develop, like I had a theory before I did this discovery. It was a theory. But when I went out and developed an experiment to test my hypothesis and theory, with the evidence that I've gathered, this doesn't become just a theory anymore. It actually becomes actual factual evidence. So it's scientific fact in my point of view. And as long as other scientists can't disprove it, then it's already proved. I've already provided more than the burden of proof needed to hold my claim. So now it's up to the scientific communities to disprove what I'm claiming, because I've already physically proven that this is what it is. And I'm 100% positive that it can't be disproved.
Well, let's move on here to another question here from this. Do you believe then these extraterrestrial messages in light are going to increase the further you advance your own studies?
I do believe, as long as I get the time to do the experiment. I had some things come up in my life where I had to relocate, and I had a lot of responsibility where I relocated, starting a new job and remodeling a new house that I purchased. But everything is settling down. The dust is clearing. And like I said, I'm doing some new experiments with video feed, audio feed. So I've already captured new things this year, which will be released eventually. But what I'm trying to do is get this information into the proper hands. And there's certain things that I may not be able to release until we get this to a certain level, because it's very unfortunate that I haven't got the backing that I'm looking for at this time. So as long as people can understand where I'm coming from, what these frequencies are, and where the research is headed, I do believe that we will be on the right track. And when that I do get something of high detail, it will be released at a proper time. But there's certain things that I may have to start keeping back until I can get people talking about this.
So with those messages, do you think they will be easily translatable?
Yes, well, what I found is that the images are becoming more clear. So the further I go into investigating this, the clearer the images are becoming. So either A, they're helping me so they can become more clear, or possibly I'm just getting better at the actual process and method. So as far as when it comes to visible light frequency and messages, I can intercept these messages as long as I have the time to put into the experiment. I have not had the time for the past year, but I will have the time for the next year. So I guarantee that we're going to have new results this year, 100%.
Gail is asking, has anybody that you know of duplicated your experiment and got the same results?
As far as the exact detail of my photographs, I have not seen the exact detail. Now, I have seen someone duplicate the results, but it was there, but it just wasn't that completely detailed. Now, I can't, on my page, when I put out evidence, it has to be 100% detailed. You know, I don't just put out any image, and that's why it takes so long for this process. You have to only put out detailed evidence. But I've seen many photographs that may not have the detail, but are there. I can see the same consistency of the photographs that I've taken, and they are showing some of the same consistency where these supernatural beings are appearing, but they're just not appearing in full detail. So as long as people continue the experiment who are doing this method, as long as they practice it, I guarantee that eventually we will see that detail soon. I just don't know when.
How many photos do you have to take in order to get one that actually shows something?
Well, like I said before, I don't know when the signal is clear. So in 1 month's time, what I try to do is take in one session. I was experimenting maybe twice a week. So anytime I could get access with the sunlight. So I would take around 100 photographs as I was running a light session through the water and the light. And through that 1 month, where I was 2, 4, 6, 8 experiments, sometimes more experiments, but around 8 to 10 experiments, taking 100 photographs each, majority of the time nothing appears. It's only maybe once a month or once every 2 months. I once went 4 months with not a single shred of evidence, and that was after the first initial photographs. So you have to be consistent with it, and then when they do appear, you can't not see them. They do appear. But if you're going to try this experiment and you don't achieve any results, I would suggest continuing the experiment for at least 2 months so you have something to refer back to so you could see, and then just keep analyzing. So it's around 100 photographs.
Have you ever put another camera up, say, facing you while you are conducting this experiment to see if there is any type of extraterrestrial activity or paranormal type activity that maybe it's happening around you as this is going on?
That I have not done. With some of the newer experiments, once I get my small lab that I'm creating, once I get this built where I'm able to do the experiment in a more controlled setting, what I was thinking of is having a separate camera to photograph me as I'm doing the experiment. So what I'm going to try to do is document the whole step from the very beginning to the very end and keep running this experiment until results are gathered that same instance. But as far as knowing what's around me, I'm only focused on the sunlight and what's in front of me.
So how much would it take for you to expand that outer limit of what, not just what your computer is seeing, but to get cameras around you? Because for all intents and purposes, the spiritual activity, if this is combining, could be absolutely all around you, and right now you don't even know if it is.
Yeah, that's a good question. And what I could be possibly investing into is some type of the security cameras, like, you know what I mean? So I could have one in the sky, I could have a couple in the room that I'm in, so I could run those cameras as I'm doing the experiment. So that is a possibility. But what I'm hoping to do is continue my experiment as best I can with the funds that I have, and as busy as I am, I can only run this experiment at a very limited time. Most extraterrestrial searches for extraterrestrial messages run 24 hours a day and 7 days a week, and for 30 years, they have came up with nothing. I have ran this experiment twice a week for 1 month, every month for 2.5 years, and I have came up with over 40 unexplained photographs of extraterrestrial messages. So what I should be looking for and hoping that other scientists are able to see, confirm, and get other scientists who have the funding and proper funding to investigate this at a much higher level. I don't feel personally I can bring this to the level that it needs to be at. I feel that it needs to have some type of scientific backing and possible funding from universities that are working on the project on their own. You know, I may have discovered this, but I'm ready to hand this over and let people experiment and try to figure out what's going on.
Do you think magnetics has anything to do with what you're seeing?
Well, the magnetic field, what there is there's these magnetic field portals that open and close all the time. NASA has mapped them out, and they call them X points. When these points open and close, they're almost like a portal, like a wormhole, where it connects our atmosphere with the sun's atmosphere. I believe when these portals open, that is when the information can be exchanged. But when these portals close, then you're not able to communicate. So it's only when these X points are opened up between me and the sun is when I'm able to extract the data that I need. So if you had a map of where these portals are, when they're opening, because they fluctuate all around the world and they're always changing, but it's connected to our magnetic field. So if you had a map of this, which NASA does, I believe you could have the processors where these portals are, and you would be able to then get that live video feed that we were discussing.
Coming in from the Revolution Radio chat room, Stardust Man is asking, do you think looking at the reflections in the water lets us see light waves that we cannot see directly? Almost like the reverse of seeing a vampire, but the vampire cannot see itself in a mirror.
That would be quite interesting. What I believe is what he's discussing too is scientists are looking for these ghost-like particles, which are called neutrinos. So what the water is possibly able to do is see these ghost-like particles, and what they are, they're neutrinos. Scientists know they're there, they can produce them, but they can't detect them, they can't see them. So there's a good possibility what I've been able to see into is not only neutrinos, the ghost-like particle, but also dark matter or dark energy. These are all things that exist but are invisible. So that is a good possibility that with the digital camera that these entities are leaving a digital footprint, just like the EVP. You don't hear it in the room, but it shows up on the digital EVP, the electronic voice phenomena. The same with the digital camera. When you take a photograph, you don't see nothing, but when you look at the photograph, a ghost appears. So I believe in order to detect these ghost-like particles, you need some type of digital photography. So like he's saying, when he looks into the mirror and he can't be seen, that's the same thing that goes with this ghost-like particle. It's invisible. You can't see it, but it's there. We know it's there, so there has to be a way to see it. So there's a lot of different routes and paths that this discovery can go down.
There has been video footage of what people perceive of extraterrestrials bringing their ships close to the sun, and it almost looks like they're refueling. And then all of a sudden in the video you see the ship kind of disappear. There's some people who believe that's a fake video. Others believe it is the absolute real thing. You mentioned that the sun, being our solar system star, can be used to communicate with other star systems and galaxies. Do you think that there is some correlation between extraterrestrials being brought to that star as maybe a fuel center, which then, obviously, they may pick up the signal of what is happening here on Earth, which turns their interest to this planet?
Well, definitely, if you were to be from another galaxy and you needed to refuel, you would definitely go to the closest energy source, which is our sun. So I could see in our dimension the sun being fuel, but in an alternate dimension, the sun could just be energy that's there, but like in our physical dimension, the sun is hot. But if you were in another dimension, the sun wouldn't be there because you would be in the exact same spot as the sun, but it's not going to be hot. You wouldn't be able to see it. But if you knew how to tap into the energy, as long as you knew where it was in that other dimension, you could actually harness the energy from the other dimensions. So that would be like hyperdimensional physics, to where you know the star is there, you can extract the energy, but you could be right there next to the star but not burn up because you're in another dimension. But as far as communication, I believe that in order to communicate with other civilizations, all you have to do is analyze sunlight. So the sun is connected to everything.
And I can understand that, but how do you feel then the star is used as a communication device?
Because basically all communication relies on waves and particles, and our star is light. It's natural light, but that light can be encoded as data. And if, like I said before, if I was somewhere else and I needed to contact Earth, I wouldn't be able to send a signal directly to Earth, but I could target the star, which is stationary. And not only that, when it comes to extraterrestrials, we know that they're visiting us. Even the Pentagon has released information to the Stars Academy, which you mentioned in the beginning of the show. You know we are being visited by extraterrestrials. So we know that they're here. So now we have to concentrate on how are we going to communicate with them. And if sunlight is our way to communicate with them, we need to analyze and look into this and not just ignore it.
No, and I think that's a viable point, because, the sun could be so much more than what we just think as a heating source and a star for other galaxies to reflect off of, or whatever it may be. I'm not very scientific that way. I don't claim to be. However, if it is being used as some sort of communication signal, what kind of signal do you think is coming off the sun in order to shoot out in towards the stars?
Well, anywhere the sun, basically our star could be connected. So all stars in the universe, if you look up into space, you can see stars. Well, that starlight is actually traveling to the sun. So if you were to look at it in that aspect, all stars are connected like a web. They're all connected through light. And now scientists have just realized that when you send light in one direction, it's traveling back in the same direction. So not only is light traveling forward, but it's traveling in reverse. Thus, this is where you have the fiber optic channels of stars. So all the stars in the universe are connected. So information can travel from one to another to another to another instantly. And not only can it travel, but since the light from our star is traveling and hitting another star, and that starlight is traveling and hitting our star, when that light is intercepted, it is transferring data instantly back and forth. And through quantum mechanics, not only can the data, even if it's millions of light years away, it can instantly be read. So the possibilities are endless when it comes to visible light communication. And then with these stars, if you were to be able to quantum entangle data into our sunlight, and then you use our sun as a beacon to just put out, so anywhere the light from our sun goes to, it is sending information and data back. You could build a universal star map if you had the proper computer to process the data that is going to come from this. You could have a universal star map of the entire universe in a matter of weeks just by entangling the data coming from the light from the sun, all that light traveling outwards and coming back at the same time. Anywhere that light touches is going to come back and give you a three-dimensional map of everything. But you would need a very, very high-tech quantum computer to do so. And we just don't have that technology.
Psycho is asking in the chat room, do you have any photos that have better resolution?
The photos on the website, depending on where you're at, the photos on the website are about as high resolution as it gets. You have to remember that, you know, I'm not as a scientist. I'm not using proper methods and tools. So in order to clear up the photographs, you're going to need to have a corrective lens installed. You're going to need all kinds of different techniques that are going. I'm only doing what I can do to get what I'm getting. But what I have gotten is enough evidence to pursue an investigation. But the problem with me is I'm not getting the investigation.
What do you need in the perfect dream world? What do you need to make this go? What would, if somebody said to you, you know, what's your 3 wishes? What would they be in order to help get this off the ground?
Well, the main thing is talking about it, but also getting funding. So if I was able to do this 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and put the time into these technologies that is using the visible light frequency, I would be able to do so myself. But my best wish as of now, because I don't even care if I'm the one that does this. My perfect wish is for scientists to come, see what this is, try it for themselves, and not just ignore it. That's it. I just want other people to experiment with it. Because, like I said before, I don't have the ability to bring this to the next level. I'm going to continue to do what I do. I've built the foundation, but I'm ready to hand this over and let others, you know, experiment with this. So the only thing I want is other people who have funding to be experimenting with the macroscopic frequencies of visible light coming from our sun.
Let's head over to Twitter for Andrew's question. He says, early versions of night vision goggles allegedly drove soldiers mad as they claimed to have seen ETs, demons, and strange creatures which looked at the soldiers and pointed at them. It was suggested the goggles viewed a different part of the light, viewed a different part of the light spectrum. Is that what this is happening with your technique of viewing these entities? Are you capturing a different wavelength of light within the light spectrum?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, you know, I haven't heard of what he was discussing with that version of night vision goggles. It's something I'll research into because that falls right into this category. But as for different frequencies, yeah, it's definitely a different type of frequency. But I could see the potential. If I'm able to capture it with how I'm processing it, I could see it in other applications as far as whether it be night vision cameras or a new type of infrared camera or a new type of digital camera that's able to process the same way I'm able to process with the water. There's this other visible light frequency that's there that's not being seen. So I could understand with the proper development of our technology that these frequencies are going to become more and more fluent and more visible in our daily lives. And it's going to alter the reality of our civilization as far as religion, you know, and then science is going to merge and we're going to be communicating with other civilizations in the universe. So the potential of this discovery and these new frequencies is too significant for me to even ponder.
Right. I think that's a fair assessment on that, you know, because, you know, there are people who are still going to wonder whether or not, like I said, getting back to the original topic, whether or not it is pareidolia. But if you're actually seeing light within the light, you might have something, like I said, on a interdimensional type scale. Have you decided whether or not, or in your conversations with other people, whether or not anything interdimensional could be some sort of possibility?
Yeah, well, regardless of where it is or what it is, you know, my main thing is, if you look at the photographs, they're detailed. They may not be high definition like we're used to seeing, but if you were to look back 50 years ago, our technology was crap then, you know, and science, even videos, movies, you name it, everything is getting better and better and better. But now we're seeing these, you know, for the first time in this, you know, new technology. So it needs to be amplified to be much better. But when it comes to, I already forgot your question, dude. I apologize.
In regards to the interdimensional aspect of it.
Yes, exactly. So as far as where they're at, I have no clue. But do I know they're there? Yes. So I feel as long as we develop this technology and ask questions, we could ask them where they are, and they're going to give us an answer. But, you know, if no one is looking into this, then we're never going to find that answer. So this is something new. It's something different. I've provided evidence. I have a claim. I'm showing research that is related to the actual physical evidence of visible light frequencies. So seeing that it's new, I have to continue. But I feel once more people get involved, like, we'll be able to better understand it. At this time, it's just too new for us to make any conclusions whatsoever. As far as we know, it's unexplained entities. We know some look human. We know some look like advanced reptiles. So we have those conclusions. But as far as where they are, that's still a mystery.
We only got a couple of minutes before we're going to go to the thought of the Dave on the show tonight. And William, I'm wondering how the extraterrestrials acknowledge being seen, and were you alerted that their messages were received?
Through my research, I realized that anytime you're dealing with quantum entanglement, when you're sending information, you can send that information securely. But if, for example, someone intercepts that message, you are alerted, you, the sender, are alerted instantly that someone intercepted that message that is being sent in visible light. So as soon as I made, and there's actual science that goes along with this, as soon as I took that very first photograph of these entities in light, they were alerted instantly, like, that I was able to see them. So then the very first photograph, I caught them off guard. They were doing their own thing. But after the first photograph, every single photograph afterwards, they were looking right into the camera. And never one time did I have to turn an image sideways or upside down. They always appear right side up. And every single entity that appears shows some form of symmetry. So if you were to cut it in half, there would be a left side and a right side, which shows signs of intelligence. Even with the human spirit, the nose, eyes, mouth, the reptile with the gold reflective eyes, if you split that image in half, you have the same on one side and the same on the other, which is very similar. Not perfect symmetry, but there's symmetry there. And that shows intelligence. So that also goes with the claim of pareidolia. If it was pareidolia, it could be a 2D image, but it's not going to be completely symmetric like our human bodies. So there's a lot of different aspects to this discovery. I just hope that people give it the time that it needs to investigate it instead of just disproving.
Final question of the night from the crowd, who is asking, this is Stardust Man asking, he's wondering if sending messages over a long distance, the stars are used almost like a slingshot. Do you think that's maybe what is happening with your studies, is that these messages are almost through the sun being slingshot back and forth?
Well, it is similar to a slingshot, but like I said, when you have light, scientists last year just realized that there's something called backflow. So light from our sun is traveling towards us, but information is traveling backwards. So light is also traveling backwards. But with quantum entanglement and quantum teleportation, I don't have to send light from here to there. What I could do is entangle a particle, and I could take that particle and move that particle to another destination. Therefore, anything that I put inside this particle here, it's just automatically transmitted to the other particle that I separated, even if it was by 1 million miles apart. Einstein referred to this as spooky action at a distance. He doesn't know how it was possible, but it's possible. Scientists are already using this technology. So like I said before, it isn't even a slingshot. It's more like you're looking into a mirror, but you're taking the other side of the mirror and you're separating it by millions of miles. So when you're looking into the mirror, the reflection of you looking out of the mirror is going to be millions of miles away, but you will be able to instantaneously see what is going on. So information doesn't have to be sent. It's just going to be there, entangled.
All right. And, once again, because we're going to get into the thought of the day here momentarily. The next steps for you in this discovery are what? When can we see some new evidence?
Well, I just released some evidence this year. There was 3 unexplained images that appeared in a video, which sent me down to do only video for this year. So I'm working on video, and I'm going to release what I can release, and also hopefully have some audio. So it's spring. I'm going to be full force on this in summer. So this year we're definitely going to have new photographs. I took a year off to do research and work on my house and stuff like that. I started a new job. So I've been very busy. But now I'm going to be back doing the experiment. So I imagine by the end of summer we're going to have more detailed results. But I'm not going to be able to release everything now. I've already released everything, so I put everything on the line. I'm going to release detailed evidence that I gather, but there are going to be certain things that I'm going to have to keep out of the limelight for right now, just for not my safety, but just for my well-being. Because I can't continue to release this information for free when scientists are using it, and I'm not getting assistance from anyone. Do you understand?
Totally understand. Totally understand.
So this year.
All right, sounds good. Thought of the day right now. Thought of the Dave happens every night at this time, where during the day I post a question on my Facebook page, and then we open it up to all of you, our wonderful listeners, to come on in and talk about this. And William's going to stay with us and maybe get his take on this as well. Today's Thought of the Dave question is this: which earthly technology being used right now do you think came from aliens? Intriguing question. We had a lot of people answering into this. So, William, I'll ask you first and foremost. Do you think there is any technology that we have out there right now that came from extraterrestrials?
Well, I would have to say, I was just actually talking about this a couple weeks back. Radio, if you were to imagine a metal antenna sticking up, and that antenna was able to capture audio from the air and transmit it into sound where you can hear it, to me, that alone just sounds like alien technology. How are you sending information through the air? And how is a little metal rod just collecting this information and transmitting it into sound? It just, to me, sounds mind-boggling.
I can't figure it out. I would say it has something for me to do with flight and aviation. And I would say it has something to do with what's hiding at Area 51. Some of these black projects that we can't confirm are there, but I'm pretty sure they have used alien technology in order to get there. I mean, some people say it's fiber optics. Some people say it's other objects. So let's learn from the crowd tonight. Michelle, who has been on this show before, Michelle Deschamps, UFO researcher out of Quebec, says fiber optics, CDs, lasers, circuit boards, night vision goggles. You buy any of those? What do you think?
Yeah,
William?
it's definitely, well, I mean, even the digital camera, but CDs, they replace cassette tapes, unfortunately, for cassette tapes. But everything is connected, and what it is we were discussing this earlier, people get these thoughts and visions. So it's just amazing how we as human beings are able to come up with these inventions that could be all involved by these thoughts and ideas that are being programmed into our brain by something from another realm.
Some of these answers are going to overlap. Like John here says night vision, fiber optics, which we heard from Michelle. Microchip technology, Kevlar, anti-gravity, shape-shifting metals and airframes, memory metals, aerodynamics to some extent, ergonomics, human and machine interfacing, liquid crystal and touch display, lasers and holographic and stealth technology. Now, some of those I would agree with. Others, I think, we got some pretty smart people here, too.
What if we were able, Dave, to go back 1,000 years? Is there anything 1,000 years ago that could have been possible alien ideas?
I don't know, but I'm still a little tripped out over that watch that was found in China that was made in Switzerland.
I haven't seen that.
Oh, it was unburied a few years ago. It's kind of cool. If you Google that, it's pretty actually cool video. But let's move on here. James says consciousness manipulation. I'm not sure about that one. What do you think? Consciousness manipulation.
That would still be classified. I would not be able to disclose that information.
Why is that?
I'm just joking. You know, the government, the CIA, they've been running those programs for a long time. So,
yes, absolutely.
So remote viewing, consciousness manipulation. There are ways to program thoughts into people's brains from other places so they could target you with technology. So, yeah, that technology is kept classified, but I imagine it exists.
Let's move on here. Elizabeth, some human-machine interfacing, especially the technology for mental control of prosthetic limbs, downloaded info. Some nanotechnology, downloaded info. Some info on antibiotics, downloaded. Smallpox vaccine. Some info on HIV medicines. I don't see this as secret government information injected into the research world, but alien telepathic help for researchers in those fields. Very interesting indeed. Thank you for that, Elizabeth. Oh, and she does want to amend the above by saying that the help came only when researchers were willing and well and goodly stuck, or the idea for the technology didn't exist at all but really needed to. Bill Cardwell, who does the password here each and every night, says none. Why do humans always downplay our own ingenuity and intelligence? The original tool makers, language creators, sailors, math inventors, chemistry experimenters, medical innovators, and on and on. Take any human accomplishment and work backwards using real discovery and research instead of fake stories, and you will find a chain of intelligent men and women who did the hard work. Most of the times, our success is built on a chain of trial and error. It's time we gave ourselves credit for the amazing things we have accomplished instead of discounting those who worked hard to create everything we know and use it daily. Geez, Bill, I guess we got to get rid of the tinfoil hats now because of that, reality consciousness type comment. My goodness, what a way to take the air out of the balloon, Bill. Wait away. Jeez. Mean. Very mean. Anyways.
Well, there actually has been documented, even Steve Jobs, who traveled to India, and he went on this whole spiritual journey before he continued with his invention of everything that he did with the computer and changed Silicon Valley forever. So if you look back, a lot of the major discoveries, and if you were to actually follow the people that made these discoveries, there's actual factual evidence of them having visions and communicating with extraterrestrials. So there's definitely something going on and putting us on the route that we need to go to.
We got a time for a couple more here. Dennis doesn't believe anything has come from extraterrestrials, except maybe DNA manipulation. Stephen Bostock, thank you so much. He says, gnomes. Really, we're getting into gnomes already. Victor Vigiani, as you know him from Zealand Communications, he's been a guest on this show as well. Shoelaces. LOL. Sorry, just had to throw that in there. Seriously, though, his research indicates that in the late 1950s and early 60s, the transistor came out of nowhere, burst onto the scene to replace tubes in radios. Should be very, very interesting indeed. Andrew says, fidget spinners. Oh my God, really? We're really getting down to that. Fidget spinners came from aliens. Really? Corey, I would have to say to the late CERN, good riddance. Brian, all of it. Jan, none. Adam, all of it short of rubbing sticks together to make fire. Well, I think I think humans are a little bit smarter than just learning how to create fire. Gail states, I believe earthly technology is just that, earthly. I do not rule out E.T. having intervened on occasion to help earthlings not kill themselves. However, this is just very thin imagination. But it seems neighborly. Sharon says Snapchat. You can even look at Jack, who says the toaster. Think about it. The toaster. We may have to leave it at that one. The toaster. You buying the toaster, William?
Yeah, no, but that got me thinking about microwaves.
I hear you there, my friend. Please do me a favor, give your website out again, and your Facebook page, so everybody can go check it out.
Yeah, definitely check me out. You can send me a message through bentlights.com. Also visit me on Bent Light on Facebook. That's where I post all the latest research into the field of visible light frequency communication and anything that I discover that relates to this. This is still a new discovery. There are many things to learn with this discovery, and then I welcome anyone to come and give me some input and just collaborate. It's best that everyone try to get involved with something so new and so different.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. Really appreciate your time. You hold on. I'm going to wrap this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Tomorrow night on the program, my final show before I head to San Francisco for UFOCon 2018 this weekend. Samantha Ellen Ritchie is going to join us. The Washington State researcher has been looking into little people in the forest as well as Bigfoot. It's going to be a great show indeed tomorrow night. I hope you tune in, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. On Thursday night, Elizabeth Anglin will be hosting for me. Then on Friday, Joe Roop from Spaced Out Saturdays will be in to take over the weekend. I want to say a big thank you to everybody who is listening at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be. Thank you for everyone listening in on Revolution Radio's chat room, on Twitter at #SpacedOutRadio, on Periscope. Thank you so much for tuning on in, especially one of our new listeners from Ontario. Really appreciate you, Blonde Wolfcan. Thank you so much for coming on in. Everybody in Spreaker, you did great tonight. And the Veterans Club, it was all men in there tonight. We did well, didn't we? Thank you so much for tuning us in. Thank you for sharing this show. Thank you for helping us grow, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you in 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.